All right, everyone. Welcome to another round of another round. I know that's redundant, but that's what we're going with.
Even a Johnson can cry.
Even a Johnson can cry. All right, guys, it is good to see you.
Hey.
Welcome, everyone, back to another round. Tonight, we're going to be talking about one of our favorite Avengers issues, issue 58, Even an Android Can Cry. And here to offer their expert insights are Sassy Scott Kolins, Stephen B. Jones, and myself, Jeff Johnson, all huge Vision and Avengers fans. All right. How you guys doing?
Gentlemen.
Ooh, what do you got there, Mr. Scott?
It's a moosey head.
Oh, nice. Hang on. Let's get close with that.
With special effects.
Yeah. Yeah. Jones.
The moose.
Yeah. What are you drinking, buddy?
Well, no variety today. I just had to go out for the.
I mean, I love a Coke. There's no doubt about it.
Especially
and Johnson.
A glass of sake.
Woo!
Sake.
Sake. Back when we all shared a studio together, Cokes were called Red Devils. And Mountain Dew, Green Demons.
That's right.
Yep. Sometimes you needed them all through the day.
And Dr. Pepper was just the very imaginative name of the doctor.
The doctor. Sometimes you needed help. You needed some medicine. All right. Well, so this is like the other issues, I was able to download a frame by frame, panel by panel kind of thing, except for this issue, I really had to download mostly the pages. I couldn't break it up into panels. I don't know what John was thinking back in the day, but he was breaking a lot of panels and doing a lot of funky compositions.
He was.
Well, I'm looking forward to talking about that because I have some theories.
All right.
Hey.
Excellent. Well,
I think John was really just going for overall page design. I even wonder sometimes if John, sometimes it almost felt like John drew a panel shape and then figured out what he was going to put in it compositionally based upon the shape he'd already come up with.
Right.
That's an interesting way to do it. I've done that sometimes too. When I can't figure out what it is I show, I leave that space blank, and hopefully, while I move on to a panel I am sure of, that something will present itself, like whatever fits in that space, like whether it's a background heavy one or a close or whatever, because it's hard to picture it all at once. I always have to define my tent pole and sort of build a page around that.
That's a good addition to my theory, which makes me think it might even be that much more true, which is that maybe sometimes it's like, okay, he kind of knew this, he knew that, he didn't quite know what was going to be in the long panel across the middle or something like that.
Right.
And then he's like, well, shit, all I got room for is this. I guess the characters are going to just punch each other in this incredibly,
they're going to come out of it.
A big zap panel.
Yeah. God, it's a really fun issue. All right. So before we get on to issue 58, which is the one we were going to talk about mainly, I wanted to jump back and show some of issue 57. So
behold,
here we go.
Vision.
The Vision, right? Just such, I mean, at this point, so Scott was saying that he took over what, issue 41? Is that when he began this particular run on the Avengers?
Yeah.
And what he was 39 or 40, you said?
No, I think he was about 40 when he did these Vision issues, 40, 41. Okay. And that was about a year and a half earlier. So yeah, 38, 39, maybe something like that. Yeah.
So, I mean, he's really kind of he's still young enough that he's kind of figuring out some fun stuff, but he's kind of at the top of his game at this point, right? Like he really knows what he's doing and why he's doing it. And it's amazing to me just how much he winds up showing. Like these issues are, like, rereading them again, they are fast. A lot of ground gets covered.
It's just some great Buscema figure work on that cover.
Oh yeah.
And
such an iconic cover. It's been covered and remade so many times now.
Yeah. You hold the vision, and then we go to this page.
So great.
You know what I didn't notice until I'd actually just looked at this before the show was the fact that it says in the top 3 panels of this that Vision's not being touched by the rain. He's in his like ghost form here.
I like, also now I realize that right off the bat, John created kind of an interesting affectation, which I guess he did for a few characters, but that on the cover and here, the Vision's big on actually grabbing and clinging to his cape, which is not something I feel like you've ever seen like Superman do.
Yeah, no, John has him do that a lot in this issue.
He really does.
Both of these issues.
He's a cape clutcher.
He's a cape clutcher. Well, one of the things I think is great about this stuff still is like his figure work is amazing, but you can still kind of see the Hal Foster, and Hal Foster had Prince Valiant hold his cape a lot. So
right.
There's kind of a regalness to it that I think the Vision has. He's very kingly.
It's great though. It's all in shadow, those first 2 panels, because we can't see him basically it's the equivalent of if we were slowly zooming in on him, and then we see his face in the lightning, and then he takes to the sky. George Klein is an interesting inker. I don't feel like gets a lot of play, and I think reading about him a little bit, I guess he was inking Kurt Swan over at DC, and then they brought him over to Marvel. And I think his inks on Buscema are really crisp.
Yeah, they're meaty for sure. I love his approach to Buscema. I was just going to say that one of the things, like I know this is for us, this is a Buscema issue. Well, rereading it, I can't get over how much I love Roy Thomas. I love his use of language, and rereading it, I realized that so many words that I would never have read in any other context I got from Roy Thomas.
It's so funny. I was thinking, so Scott was good about this a few weeks ago, and then I realized that we have to get better about this. But for any wonderful people listening to the show that don't know us, Jeff Johnson is a world famous comic book artist. Scott Kolins, world famous comic book artist. Stephen B. Jones, a non-world famous comic book artist and occasional animator. Oh, beautiful Scarlet Witch, Scott.
Animator extraordinaire.
But
right.
But Jeff and I started. Jeff and I met in high school, and in art class, and then we ended up doing a comic book strip for our local newspaper up in the Bay Area near San Francisco. And I always thought some of our cheesy dialogue was inspired by Stan Lee, but as I was rereading these issues, I realized that I think we were actually aspiring more to Roy Thomas than Stan
100%.
Lee. And
100%.
To this day, Jeff and I still tease each other about, I think, because Jeff and I would write the scripts together, then Jeff would pencil them, and then I would ink them and letter them. Cleaning up Jeff's initial lettering, and we would discuss dialogue, and sometimes stuff would get changed, and sometimes the captions would be changed a little bit. But one of our most mocked lines, I think, was one of our main character was getting lifted up by a bad guy, and it's like, Oscar teetering on the brink of doom. And I'm like, where the
Roy Thomas?
How have I never seen these?
Oh God, I have them all. I have them all in the box. Yeah, my favorite Roy Thomas line is still like a death ray from the sky. It's just the best. He had such a way with language. All right, so as much as we love John Buscema, we also want to give a shout out to Roy Thomas. Not that he needs one.
Nice,
absolutely
nice vision, Scotty boy.
So this is what I'm going to work on while we're discussing those things. But
excellent.
Let's get on to.
Damn, those are they for are they for sale?
They are going to be for sale.
Awesome.
You know what else is for sale? Jeff, cut to a close up of me.
Okay, hang on a second. Here it goes.
Anyone that would like to buy one of my sketchbooks,
one of these,
yeah, just go to my website and email me, and then give me some money, and I'll send you one of these.
I have one of those. There's a lot of great stuff in there. A lot of great character design stuff.
All right, John Buscema.
All right, John Buscema. All right, so here was the first page. Vision, just a great shot of him, and then when we were talking the last time we talked, we discussed the difference between the primary colors for heroes and the secondary colors for for villains in this. Like, so this one is at this point he's a villain, but so he still has red and yellow in him and that green. So we think he's a villain, but there's something about him that's heroic. It's really they're interesting choices.
Agreed.
Right.
Well, it's almost one of those normal things at this point in some ways for the Avengers is that, quite often, even back to Wonder Man or any of those kind of things dealing with this topic, he's a villain at first.
Yeah.
So great that in comics that you are free to play with screen direction as you would. Like say if this was animation, then we would need Vision to be moving left to right because we'd seen him be moving left to right before. But now, John's got him creeping in the window, some great shadows, some great black spotted. That second panel is so incredible with the silhouette, the couple in the doorway, and then like a Frank Frazetta style, like let's put a statue in the room.
Absolutely.
You mean like Jeff Johnson would do?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I stole that from those Frank Frazetta issues, those romance comics. That's the first time I saw it.
So good.
Yeah. One of the things that in the older comics, so much stuff happens in between the gutters, in between the pages. I think that's something that I don't do in my modern comics, and it doesn't seem like it's really done so much. Our goal is to make it almost like a little movie or a little TV show. I think that we are almost too sequential in a way. Like we're not giving the same kind of space and therefore we kind of lose real estate in storytelling.
So some of what can make a comic special is not being as beholden to, right? Comic pages are allowed to be more of the greatest hits of the moments, rather than having to show, because, good storyboarding should have that too. Actually, I'm working with a director currently on the show I'm on, and he's such a great proponent of kind of getting in and out of the moments early, oh, the guy's his hand is reaching for the thing, we can then maybe cut to in the next one he's got it or something like that. You don't necessarily have to show every single moment. You don't have to show the guy crossing the entire room.
Right. Yeah. I get a little trapped in what you need to show. And back in the day, they were moving so fast that you just that top panel is. There's stuff on the previous page we didn't talk about, but that top panel is so good. I think part of it is even in How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, but just that Jan leaning against the door and both their his entire body and the cape and everything is just pointing right into her and then the way her body is composed. It's just such great panel to panel storytelling. Mm-hmm. And then like a transformation flying through it. Look at that. My favorite panel on this page is the shot of her flying through the doorknob or
the keyhole shot.
It's such a great shot. It's just so great. And then she gets back to full size and then the slow coming through. One of the things I also love about the older school comics is that they as heroes and people and we as readers were not as jaded yet. The fact that he comes through the wall was a big deal. We wouldn't even think about that now, but that was huge back then. His being able to change his densities, it was so cool.
And that's such a great Buscema, slight upshot to Jan's face on the bottom. And then it still would have been a totally great shot if it had just been that face and that close up, but to have those Buscema hands in the foreground,
totally sells it.
Yeah,
for sure.
Right, look at that. Yeah. So then we get another of his powers, Zap. Right, this is all stuff we didn't know about the Vision yet, right?
Well, this is where
this is his first appearance.
Right.
Yeah, we didn't know any of this stuff, but that actual the Zap thing that's happening to Vision right now is his programming is stopping him.
Yeah.
Yes, but he's basically burning the Wasp alive.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
All in silhouette. Or not heavily, heavily shaded.
And was John one of the first guys to really? I know that Lou Fine and guys who were doing comics, Alex Raymond, all those guys had incredible figure work. But John Buscema was one of the first guys that the figure work just really felt natural to me, like, or the figure itself seemed so athletic and smooth. Unlike, I mean, Kirby's anatomy was always cool, but it always seemed so stylized. The stuff with John always just seems so much more natural.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and I guess his proportions are a little less. It's fascinating to think about, like, how might Buscema have looked drawing Superman at this time, you know, or something.
Mm-hmm.
But that's pretty incredible figure work.
Oops.
Wham!
I skipped ahead. Oh yeah, so this is like I said, this is issue 57. So I skip ahead to the end. Where I know I didn't want to do all of 57 because it would have taken us forever.
No, we got to get going at 58.
I know. So here's some 57. They're fighting Ultron's minions.
Well, that's a great, again, like, you know, John designed that page rather unconventionally, right? We start on the left and then we move to the right and then we move back to the left and then go down and then to the right and then down, you know, and then they even put in arrows in case people were confused.
He did that a lot. I've never had the balls to do that.
I've had editors yell at me for something like that early on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And then just so much.
Look at that first panel. Oh,
Yeah.
Again, Buscema hand in the foreground. I really love 1, 2, 3, panel number 4, just the mostly silhouette and then that kind of keyhole shape that he's walking into.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I know we're racing through this, but then
that's a total teetering on the brink of doom shot right there. I love that. I love
probably stole that panel back in the day. I probably stole that panel a dozen times.
Upcoming in the next issue, we have that too. So it's worth noting that the Ultron going through 3 different emotions in the same panel is kind of interesting and artsy fartsy.
Scott, have you ever done that? Have you ever done just the heads and talking like that?
No, I don't think so. I mean, there's usually not many situations that, you know, you'd be cramped in, because to me, that's the choice that you'd have to make because you don't have enough room in the rest of the page to get that across.
Right.
But you want to show that your character is a little bit psychotic or that there's this major turmoil that they're having. I don't think I've ever done that. I've always tried to figure out kind of one generic pose or one in-between shot that would let you know that the person's upset and they're holding their head or whatever they're doing, even if the dialogue's going different places. But if it's really going to different places, and I can do it, then I always try to make it more panels. I would have made it, 3 panels if you'd have the room. Yeah,
I would have done the same. But I do love that. I've occasionally done the floating head thing when it's a flashback, which I 100% stole from these comics.
Oh yeah.
Mark Solomon says, honestly, the Vision is most likely my favorite Avenger. All caps. Sure.
Agreed.
Let's shout about the Avengers. He's a one-bot team, like Ultron, of course, the one-bot Avenger Crusher. I mean, I have to say, I agree with you, Mark. I think when we, in our very first episode of Another Round, please view on YouTube, when we talk about our first comic ever, one of mine was Avengers 158. And just as a kid, I fell in love with the Vision right away. I'm not quite sure what, I think something about his emotional stoicism seemed very appealing at that time.
Totally. The stoicism, the powers, all that stuff. I think they did such a good job of creating and putting him together in the first part. I mean, he was like the mascot of the Avengers for a while. He was the corner piece sometimes all alone. Right. He was almost usually on the cover during the 70s and stuff. He was really like one of the key players.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that's really funny, once again, about how we were less jaded when it came to superpowers is like, so the Vision has cool powers, I-beams, he can change his density and all that stuff. And Hawkeye, one of my all-time favorite characters, at this point, still just has arrows.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and loses them and puts them back in. It's like, oh, I have to make sure that I have my arrows.
Yeah, Roy really got into that for some reason about him losing his arrows all the time, or really limiting that thing, trying to keep a certain amount of reality to it.
Right. So then Ultron smashes his face into the energy thing and messes up his electrodes and blows up. It all happens very fast. But
this is before the adamantium days.
Yeah, hoist on his own petard because he jumps through the low density Vision.
Yep.
And then and then this really sort of literary reference to the lost, or the King of Kings lost, empire and whatnot.
Super cool.
Yeah, which I have to say, back like that was comics. They're always literary, but this was a surprise for me. I don't think I'd ever seen a poem in a comic before.
No, and visually it's very different for what John does for the rest of the book too. It's very static kind of shots or distant shots. None of giant foreshortening. No real giant dramatic poses of him kicking the helmet around or the head around or any of that kind of stuff. It's very, very sedate stuff. So it actually leaves a lot of like power of the page to what you read.
Yeah. And Steve, I don't know if you knew this or not, but I looked it up. So Ozymandias was written by Percy Shelley, the poem. And there's a lot of Frankenstein themes in this storyline. And Frankenstein was written by his wife, Mary Shelley.
That is fascinating.
Yeah. So I wonder if on some level there's...
Roy's a genius.
Well, I just wonder if Roy, like if you read them at the same time, or if that was a coincidence or an intentional wink or nod. But anyway, I thought it was interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
Very, very, very cool too that this, I think this comic is 68, 69, that there's a young African-American kid, playing. Yep.
Totally. I think that's cool. The same in is it the next issue with the Black Panther or the issue before? I can't remember, but I think it's the same kid we see the Black Panther interact with, right?
Oh, is it the one he saves, or isn't he?
Yeah, because they're getting ready to set up T'Challa as like he's going to take on a secret identity as like a Harlem school teacher, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
All right. So here,
Avengers assemble. Learn the sense-shattering secret of the Vision.
Vision. Here we have. Even an android can cry. Like, just his use of language is so dramatic.
You can't forget that title.
Oh, even android can cry.
It's hard to miss. It's hard to miss since since John had to draw it into the into the splash page, and then George Klein did some nice stipple, or maybe that's Cipitone. I don't know.
I'm thinking actually the lettering was left to the letterer, that John just drew a brick wall and they said, "Go ahead."
Yeah.
I think they must have told him to leave the space, even if John didn't draw it. There's no way John left that much empty space on a cover.
Oh no, sure absolutely. I'm sure.
Or on a splash page.
Yeah. No, they do that on a few of these issues around this time, that John leaves a giant space on those in the backgrounds, or the mountain they're climbing, or all sorts of different things that leave it for the giant title, which is awesome. I love those.
Such a great page. Basically, splash page number 2.
Yeah. Look at such great figure work. And what I love is, if you forgot it was an Avengers book, now you remember. There they are.
Hey, everybody.
There's the crew.
We're just hanging out.
Oh, and I love that there's no need for a background. Once again, like, I know that these were done fast and the deadlines were always an issue and corners were cut. But sometimes I think the judicious cutting of a corner makes for a better panel.
Well, there's there's plenty of background in the first panel, but then it's a smaller panel, so it's less work. And then the silhouette of, T'Challa makes it pop more. So, then having it be an open panel is just a really, really great. And it's also, again, that we cut off Hawkeye a little bit. We cut off Iron Man a little bit. Like he didn't zoom back farther to show everyone, or even all of Black Panther.
No, it's a great group of shot.
Black Panther's leading us in. Thor was jauntily tucking his sleeve or his cape over his arm. I like that Jan outfit with the puffy shoulders and stuff. I never liked the Wasp's red and yellow outfit personally.
That one doesn't look like she's in an outfit though.
I think she is, but we could be
She
wrong.
looks like it's a winter Christmas thing.
Well, here's one of the examples of, I would normally have, so we could look more closely at the panels, I normally would have broken this down into its individual panels, but there's just no way to do that with this page.
No.
Yeah, it's difficult to do all the overlapping and everything.
Love that Vision has got, like he's holding his cape so that we can see more of the leg. Like Vision is outside the panel, but the other guys are in, and then that, and like Buscema is really the master of the hand in the foreground of a close up to give even more depth.
Oh yeah,
like that Goliath hand in that bottom panel there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that too. Well, that's. I mean, I don't want to say it's a classic Vision brooding shot. It's one of the first Vision brooding shots, that would set the
classic,
stage,
absolutely.
Yeah, for decades of Vision brooding.
Love
Iron Man rapping on the table.
Yeah. Got to pound the fist to make a point.
That's the drama. There we go.
Look at Hawkeye's little smile. Wait a minute. Like T'Challa's like, what's going on here? Yeah.
But that diving through the legs thing was
so good. Huh?
One of the things that always happened in the Avengers issues, it almost became kind of a joke, is how many misunderstandings, or just in Marvel in general, how many misunderstandings could you have between, ostensibly two heroes to make them fight? Like, what could you do to get all these guys to battle?
But that stuff always plays off so well for kids. I mean, I remember when we were kids and I read 127 of X-Men in the middle of the Proteus saga. Cyclops instigates a fight between him, Wolverine, Storm, and Nightcrawler, whatever, to make sure that they're all like still battle ready in the middle of it all.
Yeah.
And I remember reading the letters page after that issue was out. We're all like, people were like, not me. They're all upset, going, "This is crazy. Cyclops would never. Why would he fight his own?" Dude, it's always fun.
Yeah,
it's always so great here, and Cap's doing a perfect thing here, where he's making sure that Vision can actually keep up with the group.
Yeah, and he sneaks it in there because no one was just going to go ahead and fight him because that'd be jerky.
Yep.
When I was first trying to break into comics, I had a bunch of samples I sent in called question mark versus question mark, and it was basically just I would pick two heroes and have them fight for no reason.
Cool.
I forgot about that concept.
Yeah, and just have them battle stuff out for 3 pages to show that I could draw different heroes, different scenes and stuff.
All right, but this page is such a great example of John leading the eye, right? Because we have the 3 characters in the first panel and the circular shape of the table leading us right into Goliath's body, and then Goliath's hands are leading us to watch, and even though Cap's going into the panel, his energy is leading us down out of the panel into the middle panel.
Yep.
And then that middle panel is kind of what I was talking about, where it's like, okay, then we got Cap's jumping that way to make our eye go back this way. We go through the Vision, and then the background seems to have just been created simply for what will be the most appealing shapes to reinforce the energy of what's happening in the panel.
Absolutely.
Because that's another amazing thing you can kind of do in comics, which is you can play fast and loose a little bit more with your backgrounds and environments. It could be like, well, we're just going to put a bunch of cool, crazy Kirby Buscema machinery in the back here, and it doesn't have to hook up exactly with the, with cutting around the next shot. Yeah. And then Cap and Vision then lead us back down into Iron Man. And again, it's amazing, just like that second panel. On the one hand, our characters are coming out of the page into us, but on the other hand, Cap and Vision are leading us down into Iron Man, and Iron Man's leading us back to Cap, even though his energy is coming out, and again, more Buscema hands in the foreground to create an added layer of depth, another foreground in the foreground,
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, and then we once again, the 180 rule gets broken, but like the movement's still from left to right.
Exactly. That's more important. I think reading direction's more important than screen direction. In comics, I think. And so right now the energy is leading us that way, but then Vision's arm, as he's blocking, Vision's left arm brings us back down into the next panel. And then again, John has just created backgrounds merely as design elements to support where everything else is going. Right? We lost Scotty.
Sorry, he'll be back in a second.
And the spotting of the blacks on both the bottom and the top of that background.
Right.
You know, so great.
Yeah, and I love Thor. Thor is big, but Thor actually isn't that much buffer than anybody else.
Well, I mean, I think John's anatomy is so fantastic, but he's not that into the fantastical anatomy. You know, like
Right.
everyone is kind of built off the same armature in Buscema's world. I think that's a fair, I don't want to even quite say criticism, just observation. You know,
Right.
that
Yeah, this is. I mean, people were strong, and there were bodybuilders at this point, but it was not the extreme size of guys was not common.
There must have been some sort of decision in it, though. I noticed that too, that his Thor is not necessarily that big. In fact, I often think that when he's generally drawing him here and some other stuff I was looking at of John's first Avengers stuff, he draws Giant Man and Hercules. He drew Hercules a lot at the beginning. His Hercules was huge.
yeah, I mean, definitely. Actually, Jeff, can we really quickly go back to that?
Yes.
Because again, you know, then Iron Man's energy takes us, you know, takes us right into the next panel, and then Thor, we come down through Thor's legs right into, again, a giant Buscema arm in the foreground of a giant Buscema, you know, shouting upshot. Oh, Vinton, How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. That's right.
Yep, studied that book a lot.
We gotta have Vinton on this show.
Absolutely.
So,
Yes.
yeah,
Let me go ahead. And put Scott.
agreed. Well, Scott's nails were polished by his daughter, I think.
They were, although I need a fresh coat of paint.
You do.
Yeah, it's time. You gotta. Let's take a quick look at that vision, Scott, before we move on. Nice.
It's coming along.
Yeah, very
That's
cool.
gorgeous. Damn, dude, Scott, you're hauling ass on that.
Am I?
Right. He is.
No, I'm lying.
Yeah.
All right. And then, yeah, Clash of the Titans up there with Vision and Thor trading blows. What's nice, though, is they're kind of meeting as equals, but Vision, because of the layout, gets a little bit of the sense of the upper hand for that one.
Mm-hmm.
And then Thor just wallops him into next week and back into the panel. But then, again, God, I mean, Buscema's all about just leading the eye with whatever he needs to, right? Like, because again, even though Thor's energy is coming into the panel in panel 1, the action line leads you into panel 2.
Yep.
And then, you know, Thor's knocking Vision toward panel 3, but then Thor's cape is also leading us out of panel 2 into, you know, right into Goliath's shoulder for panel 3.
And sometimes I think that he would draw he could easily have moved that panel border or not drawn that foot there. But sometimes I think he has the figures pop out of the panel just because they are too mighty to be contained.
I definitely think there's some of it. I suspect that we referenced this before, but I do feel like John might have been drawing stuff fast, and this is in the old days with a lot less, you know, like, yes. I think sometimes there was some overshoot and some, oh shit, I already drew the panel border.
Yeah,
and I gotta
definitely there was very little going back.
Buscema is also well known for the fact that he just drew on the paper.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how much thumbnails or anything else he did before that, but you know, I've even heard Barry Smith make the joke of like, well, you know, we all draw things, you know, 50, 100 times to try and get things right. Well, except for John Buscema.
Yeah.
Well, and I know, not that I'm comparing myself to Buscema in any way, but I know in the 90s when we shared a comic studio, I often would just draw right on the page with blue pencil when I didn't feel like I had enough time. And people are always popping out of panels, you know, but not as artistically and eye-leadingly as
sometimes you have to let your subconscious do the work for you.
It's a great top down. I mean, previous page 2, the way John arranged the 4 headshots is just great. Like that's kind of an uneven distribution with Thor more in the foreground, just giving us more depth. Again, getting hands in there wherever he can for acting.
And I know that we've talked about this a lot, but reading some of the classics again, going over them with you guys, and really, you know, delving deep is how much more story there was.
Yeah.
There's so much more dialogue. There's so much more narration. You really get your your 35 cents worth back in the day.
Well, this was still 15 or something.
You might get 45, maybe 50 cents worth of story.
Comics were the best bang for your buck, that's for sure.
That's right, true believer.
Yeah. Hank crushing that table's great. The special effect for Hank shrinking, more Vision brooding.
Right.
I love that shrinking special effect. That's a really good version of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then nice use of having the colorist not have all the characters pop in the panel. 3 with Thor popping in the foreground.
The knockout color, yeah.
And then again another, like Buscema kind of having his own version of a Gil Kane slight upshot, but he doesn't tilt. Gil tilts the head back another 35 degrees.
Exactly, it's a way.
You got to really see in the nostrils
for Gil, yeah. And then I think this is one of my favorite parts of the book, because you're reading the stories and it's all about the Vision joining, and then Thor has this parchment that's about the Avengers, and then you just get a group shot. Like, this is
and it's an interesting group shot though, because again there's an element of like, slightly cutting off characters. But look, that is a big Hulk for sure, but it's not, and a big Hercules, but it's not a Kirby or John Buscema, or not. Herb Trimpe, like breaking the bounds of like what could you do with torsos or not, and it's a pretty buffed Spider-Man. It's definitely not a kind of a skinny, gangly Steve Ditko Spider-Man, to be sure.
No, and by this point though, by 69 or 68, this would have been Ramita's time on Spidey. Sure. But about that little Hulk figure, not only do I love the face and the whole thing, but that hand that's coming forward on the edge of the page. Oh, I love that hand so much.
It's a great hand. Do you guys remember? So, like, I had forgotten. That's Natasha. That's the Black Widow.
That's the Black Widow. Well, and I'm almost positive Buscema draws her first appearance in the new outfit, in the classic black suit outfit. And I think it's like an Amazing Adventures or something like that. It's really great. It's just a half of an issue, but that initial outfit is so great. But this one's fun too.
I mean, I don't normally like to think about this, but how much is that page worth now? Whatever collector got that page, it must be worth $1 bazillion. And rightly so. I mean, it's got them all.
Well, you guys heard about the Secret Wars page that has the Spider-Man black costume just broke records?
I did.
At auction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's stay on topic.
I think Mark Solomon, I think we just answered your question. It's Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, then Black Widow in her first outfit, then Goliath, Wasp, Hulk, Iron Man, Thor, Black Panther, Captain America, Spider-Man, Hercules, and a little guy named Hawkeye.
There you go.
Yes, except I think this outfit would have still been Giant Man, not Goliath.
Fair. Good point.
Oh, right, because later on it becomes Goliath, right?
The one in this issue, in the current time of this issue, he is Goliath. But at that point, with those black suspenders and stuff, I think he's still Giant Man.
That's right.
Someone just talks about some of the movie adaptations he did. He did an adaptation of the
Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz, and it was amazing. And reading his conversation about it, like, he just saw the movie once and then just drew it.
That is hurtful.
Yeah.
John, why you got to be so mean?
From memory. He just drew it from memory. Okay. Very frustrating. But what are you going to do? He was a pro.
Jeff Johnson, your human anatomy is very Buscema based, I think is fair to say.
100%. Well, I studied the book, the How to Draw book, in forwards and backwards, inside and out, for a long time. So that was definitely my first experience with drawing anatomy. But then I went back and was an Alex Raymond fan and also a Hal Foster fan, which I know that John studied a lot when he was younger. So I think I also just went back to his sources, but always with sort of his, structural breakdown in mind.
I think I've made this joke to Vinton, who's watching our show tonight, before, that like, I always joke that Jeff was so much better than a lot of us at a younger age, because so many of us got How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, and we skipped right to chapter 5 because we just wanted to start drawing superheroes. And Jeff was so dedicated that he meticulously learned chapters 1 through 4, which was quote unquote all the boring stuff.
I don't know anybody that's done that. Jeff's told that story before, and just like, man, I don't know anybody who actually went through the book and did all the things they said to do.
Yeah. Well, that's what a nerd I am.
You're looking at him.
Proof's in the pudding.
Oh God, yeah. That's why I'm really good at lamps and kitchens.
Jeff can draw an amazing plane taking off or
I'm
landing.
good at motorcycles and boats for that reason. All right, here we go.
Amazing purple vision in the foreground.
Yeah,
which was because there's a lot going on in that shot, and I respect that the colorist went like, look, this is how I want to, put this character, set him apart.
Absolutely.
They're all discussing him, and the grouping is really fun and interesting. And look, here John does it again, right? Like
that three emotion thing.
It's like the three faces of Eve, But there's it's a really interesting way to approach it, because doing it in 3 different panels. I mean, now we've become much more used to comics like stealing things that are more cinematic, like kind of the idea of like, right. Oh, let's just stay on one, let's not move the camera and see 3 different things in the same thing. But I don't think you could really, that wasn't really an accepted storytelling technique in comics in the 60s, I think. So this ends up being way more dynamic. And again, it's Buscema's leading the eye, right? Like he leads us there. And
absolutely, from the top of the page, and he's leading you towards panel 3 in the bottom left-hand side.
Yeah.
Well, also apart from the economy of having those 3 different emotions in that one panel and leading the reader through those transitions, it's a callback to the Ultron panel.
I was just going to say, but yeah,
right?
It's also showing their genius in the fact that it links in with Ultron.
Yeah, so we see the patronage, really. We see the connection between the 2 of them, I think, in a really interesting, almost not subconscious, but in a way that doesn't draw a ton of attention to itself.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. And then, great foreshortening there on Ultron, just cramming him into that shot. And then that, the nice, in the flashback panel borders to let us know it's not the past, we're not in the present.
I always still use that whenever I do a flashback. I round the borders.
Yeah.
Vision's in the cone of silence, getting ready to talk to Maxwell Smart. Yep. And then, great silhouette of Ultron in the foreground. And then again, Kirby did this all the time, but that's a beautiful use of panel 5. Like Buscema is just, he's simply created a background that leads the eye and is like, it's not in any of the previous shots. Like, it's designed just as a design and storytelling element.
Just shows us some cool machinery.
And like Michael Golden does a great one of those too in Avengers Annual 10. And Kirby was a master of doing it too. Then we just have the Vision Olympics.
Right.
He flies. He phases.
Right. Here's a quick recap of his powers.
Scary looking. And then again, but it's so hard to be a synthesoid.
So much drama. I wonder if, because I know that whenever I'm trying to pose out a character or get a unique character's perspective, I will act out the stuff and I'll be as melodramatic as I can get away with. But I just wonder if John sat around his house, moved around his house and made these ridiculous poses and looked in the mirror. He must have. We all do it.
That's a good point. You're probably right. certainly it's fun to see, like, when Frazetta and some of those artists of that time, took pictures of each other and did the lighting and stuff too. They had to be a lot more posy about it because they didn't have Polaroids and stuff. And of course, we were blowing through Polaroids like crazy and still trying to keep in mind that they were like $1 a shot at that point.
They were expensive back in the day, yeah. No, John must have, he was very Shakespearean. I wonder if he ever wanted to be an actor.
Yeah, like there's some great, all the all the acting on that previous page is terrific. And then again, he's got this great, like Vision holding his cape there and seeing his leg planted just does make it more dramatic than if we'd seen the cape hanging down and his arms folded. And then the fact that everyone else is blue, we just see the green and yellow is great.
Yeah. Yeah, look at that group shot. One of the things I really love about a John composition is that he fits. I mean, they're all standing very close to each other, but it's a very tense and packed panel.
Well, and he's great at doing a top down in a way that's not boring, like just a slight top down, so that you can cheat everyone in. We got the back of Iron Man in there. Everyone's doing some Buscema hand acting.
Yeah, one of the things when I first started doing animation, and I think Vinton actually might have been one of the guys to hit me to this, is that I was over hand acting a bit.
It's hard.
You were just doing it Silver Age style.
Yeah, Vinton was very kind about it, but it was also like, this is a little much, Jeff.
Right.
But this is where I got it from. Look at that hand right there. Of course. I mean, if you just got the one panel to sell it, you have to oversell it.
And look at Thor's new powers.
Yeah, I was gonna say, just a classic. Look, we can't really be bothered to bring a Quinn. We don't have the space to do a Quinjet here, so can we just have Thor use his powers in a way he's never used them before?
Yeah. Well, and they say it on the next page. They describe it in the first panel. They say he's actually got a giant vortex, a cyclone that's flying him all there. But nobody's hair is dying.
Cap's going, yippee!
Yeah, that is definitely to save time. That's like, because I'm sure he just got handed a plot, and then he's getting close to the end and realized, crap, I gotta get everybody over there.
I got nothing here.
Yeah.
Well, they used to do that to Thor all the time back then, and he'd get little different powers and do crazy things.
Well, I mean, it is a magic hammer.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Right. But then the other one I love is just how convenient the technology was.
All right, now this one I feel like there might be a little bit of an element of less planning and more. I've already drawn it on the page and I can't, because that Thor arm, you feel like it probably would have and should have led into the second panel, not the third one. But you couldn't just cut it off where John cut it off to keep it within, because it would have just been kind of a not very appealing hand tangent. And there's an argument that the arm should have come even more toward Cam at that angle, or maybe rotated it. Like if it's at 6 o'clock, maybe it should have been at 7 o'clock and pointing toward Goliath or whatever.
Yeah, but the thumb points at that second. Everything points at that second panel.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's a ruined page. I'm just saying, and obviously we're talking about our betters here, but
right.
But I do think that one looks somewhat like less deliberate.
I do love. There's a great line in the Tick where he's talking to a bunch of old timers, and they were talking about some mind control device, and the Tick says, that's what I love about the olden days. The science dreamed big. Now it's all just molecule. Like, they would just make up the coolest machines back then. It's a memory record. Like, why would he have that?
Right. And that's a great Buscema top down. I feel like Buscema was always using top downs to layer characters, and have them pop. And so it's like, it's an awesome, great shots of T'Challa and Cap's back, and then the perspective leading us into Hank Pym. I don't remember this.
This is different than
What went on here?
I thought it was broken, And I love that in the previous one.
Now we're getting to the meat.
Yeah.
Jan leaning forward, the crazy device that Hank Pym is wearing to suck out his memories.
Right.
This is during this era where Hank's hair was being colored orange for some reason, but there you go. There's the first Ultron, which is more of just kind of a vacuum cleaner.
I mean, Ultron, we never see Ultron 2, 3, and 4, do we? We go right from this one to Ultron 5, right?
You got to
pretty much. Yeah, we don't see the in-between parts in there.
I bet there's good stories in there. I'd love to see those.
Somebody may have done them in the interim now.
Great backgrounds. The shadow of Ultron making him pop is great, and the cast shadow of Hank. Of course, when you're a superhero, you still wear a lab coat when you're doing lab coat shit.
Well, you never know when you got to bust out a
I have
costume.
lab coat on.
Another Buscema, tilted face up, close up with a hand in the foreground. Right. Yeah. I mean, at the very least, John certainly had a mirror at his desk, right?
Oh yeah,
I would think so. Yeah.
for sure.
We got to remember too, in this day and age, for that Ultron 1 or whatever you want to call him at this point, that it's probably influenced by Robbie the Robot, or maybe even the Daleks and the English Doctor Who stuff or whatever.
Right.
Jeff Vinton is saying it's because overseas always messes up the handsy acting, is his contention about why he gave you a hard time.
Vinton is very kind.
JD Hybrid X, Buscema was fast too, right? I believe so. Yeah, I think every artist at this point pretty much had to be fast.
Yeah,
and I
think
he was doing at least 2 books a month.
Yeah,
all during this time.
He was hauling butt.
Zwick crack.
Yeah,
that's some great. Ow, low ceiling, and I love that last panel so great too, of just that super low angle, and and him like just bending characters any which way to get them into frame, into panels.
One of the things that I have never been able to figure out is that behind the knee connection of the tendon and the quadriceps. I've never been able to make it look good. I just
if Jeff can't figure out that anatomy, then Scott and I are fucked.
It's funny, just when you were thinking about that, when Steve was pointing out that panel again, I mean, he draws that pose a lot, but there's this one and on the next page too, where you see basically all those torso muscles from that underneath side vantage point or whatever. Yeah. I remember there were just like months at the Kubert School, I was looking for reference of something to be able to draw those muscles at that angle. And I was searching. I should have just looked at this book.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know how right they are, but they look good.
No, those are good.
Yeah.
Because I did a lot of research trying to figure them out.
Yeah.
And that's basically it.
The Ultron one, this is hysterical that he's being just menaced by a vacuum cleaner.
I mean, Ultron 1, not threatening. I mean,
hey, he's got a ray blasting. That hit him on the previous page.
Yes.
And he's got the Jupiter 2 on top of his head.
Yeah.
Also very, very phallic as well.
I mean, Mark has a great point. How has anyone ever drawn a commission of Ultron 1? I know I haven't.
No.
I bet it'll
definitely be a 1 of 1.
It's definitely coming. Oh, all right. Yeah, I love the design.
Wump.
Yeah.
What? It's barely dented. Always, that's a good reminder that like a close-up of a profile can be a great close-up, And again, he's shouting us into the next panel, right? Mm-hmm. Saliva is definitely flying out of that angry Hank Pym right there.
And then zap.
Arg. And again, I mean, that's another example of a panel. Actually, they all do, but I mean, panel 3 and panel 4 feel like John had this much room for a panel. What figure can I get in here?
Mm-hmm.
Well, for me to fit someone into here, he's going to have to be laying across the panel.
Yeah, flying back.
But John does this throughout too. It's a really interesting thing that I realized, that John has the character's energy moving one way, but then like the figures work both ways. Or
yeah,
I mean, in panel 2, Hank's punching into the frame, but we follow Hank's body into panel 3 and 4. Panel 3, the energy is leading us in the same direction as well, but then panel 5, it's leading us to the end, to the page 14 caption. His foot is, but at the energy, he's going backwards. It's interesting.
So Matt was asking about the colors. I just wanted to go back and double check to make sure I didn't get his name wrong. Can you guys see that? The color?
Is it Sam Rosen, or is that the letterer?
There's no colorist listed on this in credits.
Oh, really?
Not this issue. There was a mistake done or whatever. Sam Rosen is the letterer.
What about
The previous issue is they did not do the colors there either.
Wow, interesting.
This might have been during that time when they still weren't doing that.
I wonder who
Yep.
it was.
I looked at another issue before that one, still no colorist credit.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's credits were
And
Colors were the last one to get credit.
Matt Nick 1983 is either from a British Commonwealth country or he just spells funny.
Take
What
that.
do you
Matt.
spell?
Yeah. All right. That's a good question, though. We'll have to do some investigating and find out who did these because they are vibrant. They really are.
JD Hybrid X, I can see Alan Davis studied him for sure, and I think it's why our boy, Jeff's Anatomy from Buscema, Alan Davis, like Jeff was definitely drawn. No pun intended.
Yes.
Pun fully intended, you vile thing.
Alan Davis definitely has a similar way of constructing the figure and anatomy, and also storytelling. He uses the top down sort of in the same way, and he has a very similar approach to page design, or used to. I mean, he's gone his own way, but there's definitely some Buscema influence in Alan Davis.
Yeah,
I think
super
so.
powerful figures, but yet graceful.
And fair to say some evolution too,
Mm-hmm.
That is not a happy time for Buscema. Or I mean for Hank Pym.
Right.
Then just man on the street. What in blue blazes?
That face shot of Hank there is haunting.
Oh yeah.
Beautifully emoted.
What in blue blazes, was that an expression only invented and ever spoken in comics? Has any human or has anyone ever seen it in an old TV show or a movie or anything like?
There's a lot of that in this one, like high pockets.
Oh yeah.
It's just a lot of the weird
the nicknames.
Weird nicknames, weird alliteration. It's strange. I don't know if that was.
Shellhead. I think Clint Barton might have been #1 nickname giver for in the first 10 years of Marvel.
Right. Well, that because he kept dropping his arrows. What else did he have except snark?
Yeah, but he throws some great ones in here. He calls Cap Methuselah.
It's true.
This is such an amazing panel.
Yeah.
Foreground elements, the pose.
So good.
Concern Jan.
And I mean, you have to give the inker a lot of credit for look at the wonderful textures, the wood, the machinery, like it's
for sure.
Oh, I think Klein did a beautiful job with these issues.
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah.
He was really great.
Truly.
All right. Another top down.
Jan giving him what for?
Well, and this finishes off the plot conundrum that he didn't know what was going on here. So when he wakes up at this point, he's going, I want to get out of this building. I don't want to do my projects here anymore.
I know. Oh, right. So
back to
right.
Great Cap foreground in the second panel. And then, and then this series, again, that's a great Buscema slight top down on panel 3, putting Thor in the foreground, getting all that depth. Thor's not saying anything, but it just gives us a lot more. And because it would have been a bit repetitive, panel 3 with 4, if we'd been following Iron Man's legs and arms down, because they're the figures are almost the same size. But so popping Thor in there and having his wings lead us into the next panel really,
well, it's one of those great things that he's trying to include as many people as possible in all the panels as we keep going along, because not everybody really has a part as the story goes along. In fact, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but through much of this whole sequence, going back to the mansion and everything else, Black Panther disappears.
Oh, yeah.
He's not in many of the panels. He shows up at the end.
Right.
He's part of the greeting and everything. But there's many pages here in the middle. I'm like, wait, where'd T'Challa go? You can only fit in what you fit in.
He was using a pass without trace spell to be extra stealthy.
Exactly.
Wait, Jeff, I think we need to go back to the next one. Because look at that amazing space chair that Hank Pym is sitting on in panel 3.
Sure.
But then also panel 5, come on, it's Wonder Man.
I didn't want to nerd out too much, but I've always loved that shot.
That's Wendy. Jeff, have you drawn? How much have you drawn this costume of Wonder Man's?
So I've drawn that costume a bunch when it comes to. I've done a ton of commissions of him in the older costume, and when and when I was like, there was a story once where he, one of the issues, he recaps his origin, and so I drew it there. I love that one. I love the infinity symbol that rolls around. I love this one.
You're the one who told me that it was so clever that that they put the infinity symbol in that whole midsection of his costume. I never pieced that together.
My contention is that the original design of that costume, they knew, like, he is the infinite hero. He keeps coming back, and he's like an energy wave sign that rolls around his body.
So cool.
Love the way that those figures are layered in that first panel, right? I mean, and this is another one of those things. It's like Riso or anyone. It's like much faster to draw that first panel to layer everyone that way, but it still has to work. I'm sure if you move the camera out and you extended down Scourge the Executioner and everyone's body and legs to the ground plane, I'm sure they would all work properly in that drawing. But so much faster and more interesting to just do big Executioner in the foreground, and then John was just really good with positioning characters in such a way that there's like an energy swoop or line as you're following them. Then, right, just a mini coming at you shot.
But, yeah, there's even that little figure of Wonder Man. It's just so much oomph in it.
It's great. Shaka Foom.
And then this.
Right, that's exactly what I was talking about, right? Like, because that's the middle of the page. It's like, oh wait, I gotta fit Wonder Man punching Thor in here somehow. Yeah.
What's funny about that, like that cape, that's not how that cape should be flowing. You put it in the right place to lead your eye and to frame it, it looks super cool.
Yep.
And then another, right, we got a great Zemo close-up with a Zemo hand and, shoving in Wendy in the background.
And what I love is, and once again, just how much gets told, how much story gets told. Like, Thor gets hit, we see that, but then moving the boulder that Thor is under, we don't see that. We never saw that happen. But that's a major problem, right? For the Executioner, don't move that.
That's
boulder.
not in the original Avengers issue.
It might be. I don't, but it's not. We don't see it here.
Oh, I thought he mentions it.
Not for long. Not while Wonder Man lives.
Oh, it's that last panel. They talk about it.
Yeah,
that's
what
Wonder Man's doing.
But nowadays we would have shown Thor under there.
Oh, yeah.
Right? We would have. I personally would have wasted a lot of real estate showing all that stuff,
rather than just a tiny hammer in the corner of the panel, rather than like, say Thor's hand sticking out.
Right, but that's so much more. It's just so much faster to do it that way.
Well, we've talked about this before, Jeff. Is that I think there is a little bit of a deficit right now, where these rules that have come down the line during our generation about what is storytelling and how the story, for the most part, should read visually, and then the script adds to it or this or that. I think there's something to that old storytelling where it did actually skip beats on certain visuals, and that you had to read the caption or those balloons or something. To really feel out, what the rest of the story was. That's one of the reasons why I like Dark Knight so much, was that heavily relied upon the fact that you had to read it and look at the visual to get the story. You could not get it from one or the other.
Agreed. Yeah, I do think that the desire now to make the art do so much of the work, I think sort of limits how much story you can tell.
It
ties the artist's hands too.
Yeah.
That was a great, beautiful. Sorry. Look at Scott draw. Scott draw good.
I just wanted to take a quick breath and look at Scott's draw. Yeah, that's coming out great.
Yay!
Yeah. Super cool.
Nice hand.
Yeah.
Thanks, sir.
All right, here we go. And bang. There we go.
Great. Just Buscema, beautiful, attractive Enchantress face.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nice. Again, George Klein doing some nice textures on that second panel, making the characters pop. Wendy breathing his last.
Wendy.
Or is it? And then,
right.
It is a really interesting choice, this whole Vision origin thing, putting Wonder Man's memory patterns in Vision and everything.
Jeff, back to the last page, please.
Sure.
I mean, then that panel 4 is just another great, like, a collection of close-ups, but to do the 3/4 backs of Cap's face and Thor's face, we got T'Challa's now magically back.
There he is.
There he is.
Doing one of those 3/5 close-ups where you cut off part of the face, and then it's like, oh, then it's kind of like, all right, we got to finish this thing. All right, everyone fly. Just Thor and
right, we gotta get back.
Shove Vision in the foreground. Okay, we don't need to show everybody, which you don't.
We don't. We assume they're all coming back.
And then
and we don't need to see them landing at the mansion or anything. They're just there. They're just all back.
And we don't need to have 4 pages of them discussing. Let Henry Pym announce our victory, our verdict. We don't need to see them deliberating, But nice now that Hank, Clint, and T'Challa have all taken down their masks, to welcome them. Again, great profile shot of Vision in the foreground. Then another example where we're talking about with the background, just using the background as a design and flow element.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now somebody explain to me panel 3.
I think that's someone's eye looking at the Vision.
I agree.
I think so too.
I agree.
But holy mackerel, that is a far cry from anything else that John's done this issue or most of the issues I've ever seen. That is so like 60s, almost psychedelic kind of a choice to do. And yes, I got that idea too. It's somebody's eyeball that they're watching him.
It's sort of reminiscent of the triple close-ups of the Vision one earlier and the Ultron one in the previous issue, where you're kind of playing with reality.
It's a surprising choice, though. It's not. I mean, it took me a second to figure out.
But
again, I read this issue, a million times, whatever. That panel never stopped me. This time going through, trying to actually like stop and look at each panel, think about what he's done. I ran across that one. I'm like, what in the? Oh my God! But it totally worked. It never stopped me as a kid.
This is a beautiful page, just because that top panel is just a great, and the hand pointing us over to the Vision, but then Vision pointing us back. Then the background takes us down around on panel 2. Another great Buscema top down where all the characters are layered really great.
Yep.
And then, crazy panel 3, which is it's like Vision's reflection in someone's eye.
Well, I think it's apropos because they're talking about he's so cold. But if you take
judgments,
his face, he's having, maybe he's having this emotion and he turns and walks away.
And then that panel's so great. I love that the background is the panel border. And I love that it kind of cuts off, like there's that white spot. And then the way that Hank and Iron Man and Clint's, are all layered differently. And then again, Vision's whole, clutching his cape as he walks into the black beyond.
Mm-hmm. So he can be alone. So we can have this moment, which is
even an android can try.
And again, this shot has, made it around the world 50 times over. Everybody knows this shot. If you know about the Vision, this is one of these shots
Right.
Yeah.
There's an artifact I saw online that's of this John Buscema stuff. And this is the cover of the artifact. It's the cover of the book.
Yep. Oh, interesting. Mark says that Spock and Vision look kind of similar. I wonder.
I've heard something about that in the past, that was one of Roy Thomas's pitches to Stanley of why to do Vision and everything. Apparently Stan initially told Roy, no on Vision, no on Vision. Roy kept asking for him. And then he came up with this robot angle and that kind of Spock stuff. And apparently then Stan said, okay, fine.
Interesting. Way to go,
which
Roy.
was super popular at the time. And it's not even at the time. It goes on with, Data and succeeding generations and all that stuff.
Well,
because kids are trying to figure people out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's having a character that doesn't quite know who they are or what their place is or where they belong, I think has really poignant for all of us reading comics back in the day.
It is, but I also think it really just screams to kids.
Yeah.
Well, so Star Trek first appeared in September of '66, and then Vision first appeared in '68. So that would definitely seem to be consistent with comics, ripping off pop culture and vice versa.
Totally. All right, and then here is the next issue, the cover to the next one. I know Steve, Yellow Jacket is you've always liked that character.
Wait, that's not the next cover.
I don't like Yellow Jacket.
It is. It looks so different in black and white.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy that texture.
You look at that, right? His name is Yellow Jacket.
Yeah,
okay.
That's
All
such
right.
that Hawkeye pose is such a Buscema pose.
Totally.
Crouching.
That crouching forward. And look at that Panther shot.
Beautiful.
Any one of those could have been its own cover, but they're just a couple figures in the background.
And Panther gets a action swipe for his arm.
Now, so Buscema designed the Vision's costume?
I believe so.
And
It's a good question.
I wonder if he designed Yellow Jackets then too. They both feel like they would be Buscema's designs.
They definitely feel Buscema-y to me.
Yeah, I would say so.
Buscema-y,
Buscema-y.
our newest adjective.
Right. That's looking good, Scott. That came out nice.
Yeah. I knew this was going to be a fun thing. Once we decided to do this whole issue and whatnot, I was like, oh, I never got to draw the great, this Silver Age version of the Vision so much.
Yeah. I drew him a little bit in my Wonder Man issues, but he was white at that time.
Oh, yeah.
The John Byrne thing?
Yeah.
I drew some backgrounds for Jeff in some of those
You drew a lot of
issues,
backgrounds.
and Operation Galactic Storm and whatnot. There's some great Vision and 1D team up, but yeah, it's Vision in the spooky,
in his more ghosty one,
which is a great looking costume too, because he always kind of popped in a colorful superhero comic for his lack of color. It was really fun in WandaVision to see both Paul Bettany dressed up for Halloween in a classic version of this costume that were there a Vision comic in the 1970s. That's how they would have dressed him.
Right.
And it was fun that they also did that thing where they did the John Byrne spectral, blank version of Vision too. It was fun to see.
Right.
Well, guys, we made it through a whole issue
and more
in record time.
We're becoming professionals at this.
Yeah, we're getting better, and also having to look at the whole page and not looking at each panel, it sped things up. But yeah, this is a fantastic. This is a really great run. I think that John obviously gets all the credit he deserves, but yeah, whenever you think of the Avengers, I still think mostly of the Kirby stuff. But it seems like John did a ton of design work too.
Yeah,
Well,
and he was there at such a pivotal time of Avengers stuff.
I think I ended up luckily being on time or sort of early to this party because we all started collecting comics around the same time, like 77, 78, 79 for the three of us, I think. And so Avengers being drawn by Sal Buscema and then John Byrne and then George Perez, those are my first exposures to the Avengers. But during the same time, Marvel luckily always was doing those reprint comics in the 70s too. And so I remember I was buying Marvel Triple Action, which was reruns, which was reprints of the 60s Avengers.
Yep, I got them too.
And that was also my exposure to I got in on a lot of Gil Kane and John Romita's Spider-Man because of Marvel Tales,
Yep.
Because the great thing about those reprints was it allowed you to read back issues for cover price. Like you didn't have to go back.
Absolutely.
You couldn't afford to buy, if you were a kid, you couldn't afford to go buy a 10-year-old, comic in a bag and board, but you could buy a cruddy reprint from Marvel Triple Action or what was the Fantastic Four one, World's Greatest Comics or something?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Well, yeah,
World's Greatest Comic Magazine.
It was tough. I mean, it's the whole idea of getting back issues now or finding stuff online. It's so easy. I remember, like, if you missed an issue, you were
doomed.
Yeah, it might take you forever to find that back issue if you ever did.
Or our friend and coworker Dusty Abel, who wants us to talk about Avengers 164, 165, and 166, which we absolutely should. As John Byrne came sweeping in, the Avengers fight Count Nefaria. Wonder Man is wearing his ill-fated Christmas tree outfit for a little while.
I love that costume.
Me too. But I think I missed Avengers. I had Avengers 158 and then Avengers 160 with the great, George Perez, the Grim Reaper giving a trial of who's the real Wonder Man. Is it Wonder Man or is it Vision? And I missed
so good.
I missed the Graviton issue forever. And same with I had Avengers 165 and 166, but I couldn't find 164, and couldn't find it forever. And I've already talked about that. I traded 6 Fantastic Fours to get X-Men 129, the first appearance of Kitty Pryde.
Wheeler and dealer.
Oh no, it was a terrible deal. And my Kitty Pryde issue that I got, it's so beat up because it's a kid at school had it that didn't care about comics.
Hang on just one second, Steve. Scott, go back a bit. Right to that bit. There's the kid.
There's those kids. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they're talking about, oh, wouldn't it be great if Black Panther would lived on my block?
Right.
So cool.
Let's use this primitive MRI on Vision.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Looks like they're gonna shock him awake.
Yeah.
What do you guys? I think we should put it out there too. We already know a lot of the comics and cartoons that we're planning on talking about, but we should maybe put it out to our listeners, to people throwing out any suggestions for comics they'd like to hear us talk about. That might be
absolutely
our test.
Oh yeah,
line.
no, totally.
What was this? So Matt has a question at the end. What I wanted to work on? I mean, who would have done a great Vision, do you think?
Davis.
Yeah.
Garney.
Garney would be great at a Vision.
That's true, actually. Oh, well,
Ivan Rice.
Ron is so incredibly great, and he's mostly almost always done single characters, and and it would, I guess he did do like a Justice League.
Yeah,
thing,
his Justice League stuff is amazing.
But it really would be fun to see Ron have drawn, go back in a time machine. I don't want him to stop working on Berserker now. But
having Ron draw like all the Avengers from this kind of era, that would be sweet.
Would have been great because Ron doesn't cookie cutter people's bodies. Like everyone would have gotten a different body and silhouette and stuff.
Look at that title.
Oh yeah.
Death calls for the arch heroes.
Oh, like a death ray from the sky. All right, guys. So we made it through. This was a really fun episode. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you guys for coming on board and hanging out and talking about John Buscema and all the other guys, Roy Thomas, and just the mastery of this issue. And we'll have to take Dusty up on his suggestion and do more Avengers later, and we will announce our next episode, which I'm not quite sure what it's going to be yet, but it's going to be fun.
It will involve a comic book or a cartoon or a movie, and most likely the 3 of us will be here. We can tell you that much.
We can almost guarantee. So everyone, I want to say good night. Thank you guys all for joining us.
Cheers.
Cheers. Jones?
I drank my Coke already and the ice, but cheers.
There you go. All right, then I will play us out and put the stuff up. So check us out on our various online Instagram, Facebook, Twitter places.
And Scott, let's do it.
All right, hang on. Yeah, that's the stuff.
Yay!
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Join us next time.
Toodles,
love you guys.
people.
Yeah.